For as long as most people have been alive, flying has been ruled by just two companies. Boeing from America, Airbus from Europe. Look up at almost any passenger plane in the sky, and it was built by one of those two. Together, they've owned this business for about 40 years, like two kings splitting the whole world between them. Lots of countries have tried to break in and build a rival plane. Almost all of them failed. But now, one plane has a real shot at cracking that empire open. It's called the C919, and it comes from China. And the reason it might actually work isn't really about the plane itself, it's about how China is playing the game. Let me show you. First, let's talk about why this is so hard, because that's the whole story. Building a plane that can fly is actually the easy part. Believe it or not, lots of countries can do that. The hard part is getting airlines to trust it enough to bet billions of dollars on it. When an airline buys a Boeing 737, they aren't just buying metal and engines. They're buying 50 years of backup, spare parts waiting in every big city, mechanics all over the world who can fix that plane in their sleep, training centers everywhere. That giant safety net is the real wall. And for decades, every challenger smashed into it and gave up. Japan tried and quit. Even Russia's version got stuck. So why would China even bother trying something that has crushed so many others? Because for China, it's not just about business. It's about not being controlled. China is the second biggest flying market on Earth. But for years, nearly every plane it used came from the West. That made China nervous. What if relations went bad and the West cut them off? So China decided it needed its own plane, built at home, that nobody else could switch off. That's where the C919 comes from. To build it, China created a company called COMAC back in 2008. And here's the thing people forget. This was not a quick success. It was a brutal 15-year grind. Missed deadlines, endless safety tests, piles of doubt from experts who didn't believe China could pull it off, but they kept going. And in 2023, the C919 finally carried its first real passengers on a flight in Shanghai. It's a full-size jet that holds around 160 people going straight after the two most popular planes in the world, the Airbus A320 and the Boeing 737. For China, that first flight wasn't just an airplane taking off. It was a giant moment of national pride. Now here's the secret weapon that makes the C919 different from every failed challenger before it. And it's not the wings or the engine. It's something invisible. Time, patience, money that isn't in a hurry. Think about it this way. Boeing and Airbus are private companies. They answer to investors who want profit right now, every few months. If a project loses money for too long, the investors panic and it gets killed. That's exactly what buried past challengers. But COMAC is backed by the Chinese government. It doesn't have to make a profit next year, or even in 10 years. It can lose money for a very long time and just keep pushing. That kind of patience is a superpower in this business, because building trust in a plane takes decades, not months. And China gave itself one more huge advantage: a built-in crowd of buyers. China's own airlines, which the government controls, have already ordered over 1,000 of these jets. Over 1,000. Any new plane maker in the world would dream of that. Those orders mean COMAC has time and space to fix every little bug, collect mountains of real flight data, and slowly get better and better, all while flying safe, busy routes inside China. No other newcomer has ever had a practice field this big. But let's be honest about the plane's weaknesses too, because they're real and they matter. And the biggest one is hiding right under the wings. The engines. Right now, the C919 flies using engines built by a famous American-French company. So even though the plane is proudly Chinese, its most important part, its beating heart, still comes from the West. That's a huge risk for China. Imagine building your whole house, but the key to the front door is held by someone who might not like you. If relations go sour and those engines get cut off, the whole program could grind to a halt. China knows this, and they're racing to fix it. They're building their own engine, and they've set a goal to have it ready around 2030. But here's the cold truth. You can't rush a jet engine. These things run hotter than the melting point of the metal inside them. They have to survive birds, hail, and thousands of hours of shaking without ever failing, because a failure means lives. Western engine makers spent 50 years learning to do this, mostly by making mistakes and fixing them. China can spend all the money it wants, but it can't buy 50 years of hard-won lessons. Catching up here will take time. There's a second quiet wall too, one most people never think about: airplane leasing. About half the world's planes aren't owned by airlines at all. They're owned by giant leasing companies, like banks for planes. These companies only buy a jet if they know they can easily rent it out again anywhere in the world if one airline gives it back. For a Boeing, that's easy. For the C919, it's a scary question. Outside China, who else can service it? Who takes it if something goes wrong? Until the C919 has parts and mechanics spread across the globe, those big moneylenders will be nervous, and that slows everything down. So the C919 isn't beating Boeing and Airbus today. Its plane isn't clearly better, and it still leans on Western parts. But here's why the West is genuinely worried anyway. It's not about right now. It's about the game China is playing. Look at the math. China will need something like 8,800 new planes over the next 20 years. That's a market worth about $1 trillion. And Boeing and Airbus used to treat it like their own private gold mine. Now, China is telling its own airlines to buy Chinese instead. Every C919 flying between Chinese cities is an order that used to go to the West and now never will. Slowly, quietly, that's billions of dollars draining away from Boeing and Airbus forever. And every one of those flights does something even sneakier. It gives China experience, real flight hours, real data, a stronger factory. So by the time the C919 is ready to sell to the rest of the world in the 2030s, China won't be a beginner anymore. It'll be a seasoned player with a proven, tested plane, sharpened for years inside its own giant market. Even a former Boeing boss admitted the danger. It's not that China's plane is better yet. It's that China is playing a game measured in decades, while Western companies are stuck worrying about the next few months. And China isn't planning to stop at its own borders. It's already offering the C919 to countries across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, often bundled with friendly loans and deals the West can't easily match. They're not trying to win the busiest Western airports tomorrow. They're trying to quietly own the skies of the growing world for the next 50 years. So here's where we've landed. For 40 years, the sky had room for only two giants. Now there's a third chair being pulled up to the table, and it doesn't look like it's leaving. The C919 still has real problems to solve, the engine and the world's trust chief among them. But for the first time in a long time, the two kings of the sky are looking nervously over their shoulders. And that alone tells you something big has changed.